Hey everyone, David C. Anderson here coming at you from the Knife Center. And as you know, Blade Show has been canceled, but our Blade Show week celebration continues. And today I've got Rob Cabrera from DoubleStar Knives here. Rob, how you doing?
I'm doing great, man. It's all good, my friend.
Excellent. Well, the reason I wanted to have you on here today is, you're a friend of the Knife Center, and we've not actually had the chance, or I've not actually had the chance to meet up with you in person, either at SHOT Show or at Blade Show in the past. So even though you don't necessarily have some brand new unveils here, I want to give you a chance to talk about these things from the perspective you guys are coming from, because obviously you're a very tactically inspired company, and I am very not tactically inspired personally. So yeah, tell us a little bit about the brand. Tell us a little bit about what you guys try and do with your products.
Excellent. First of all, Dave, I just want to say thanks to Knife Center for this opportunity. Also, lamenting quite a bit for no Blade Show. That's a real, a real punch to the gut. It's just been such a big deal for us for a long time. Almost, this will be Blade Show 10. Would have been Blade Show 10 for me. So, Blade Show was a big thing for me even, before all the COVID thing
Sure.
and all that. So it's a real punch to the gut. A lot of people and friends and associates we don't get to see until Blade Show. So yeah, so and it would have been great to see you. I usually run into Matt Donahue quite a bit. Him and I see each other at all the gatherings. So yeah, Blade Show's a real important part of what we do because it's a great opportunity that I have to talk to the people. They get the hands on the product, give an opportunity to talk to them about our brand and where we're coming from and why we do what we do. Because there's a part of this that a lot of folks don't know. We've been in the firearms industry for 40 years, right? And this is my spiel now that I basically do at Blade Show, because a lot of folks will walk up and say, "Rob, who are
Yeah.
you? We
Well,
know
and,
your
and
gun."
that's why we're here. We don't have the in-person Blade Show, so but we can still hang out and still have our booth visits virtually.
Yeah, yeah, and it's uh, you know being in the gun industry for 40 years, we are a company that's based on solid, American made values. And when Double Star decided to go after the knife industry for about 4 years ago, I started out as a designer, but the goal was to generate an American made product. Now, we didn't do what a lot of other gun manufacturers did, which, they partnered up with some other people, some other different folks from different industries. We didn't do that. We actually brought in and said, "Hey, we can make this product." So they went ahead and they brought me on board as a designer, and I helped starting things up. And then as we continued further, I came on full blown because they didn't want it to be something where it didn't seem genuine, where it wasn't a knife guy involved. No, it was just a bunch of gun guys. No, it's a knife guy. I am a knife guy. I come out of the knife industry. I was mentored by Ryan Johnson, John Hutchison, John Graham. I've got other guys like Chris Williams, Darren Soroy, people like that who've helped me into the industry over a decade ago. And I've been doing my thing since. And so I came to Double Star with this idea of selling out two knives. I'm a knife guy. That's what we do. So we've carried on 40 years of tradition and legacy into the knife side doing it. We're making them here. Now we've got a couple of collaborations that we've done with some imports, but 95% of what we do is made right here in Winchester, Kentucky.
Very nice, very nice. Now, I've actually had a chance to try out a couple of your blades, or actually try out one in depth. For those of you out here have been viewing this channel for some time, you may remember we did did a review of the Double Star Fury. I
Yeah.
guess last year at some point, which I've actually got the one we tested right here. You've got a virgin one over
Yep.
there. Now, and this is why I wanted to have you on, especially because, as I mentioned at the top, I'm more of an outdoors guy. I'm not a combat guy. This is a very tactical design, but I was the idiot out there, banging on trees and batoning wood with it, which it was a lot of fun. But tell me what where do the strengths of this blade really lie?
Okay. So this is going to be more inside baseball stuff. So a lot of folks here's another thing folks don't know, is that I am a certified Kali practitioner and have been dealing in Filipino martial arts for probably almost 33 years. And on top of that, before all these different things, I was a land surveyor for 22 of those years. So I actually spent 22 years swinging a machete. So when it comes to cutting line through woods, I've got hundreds of miles under my belt. So when it came time to develop the Fury, my thoughts were less from a chopping point of view, less strokes are better, and indestructibility. I want to build a piece of kit that if, whatever group you're from, if you're working in Africa or whatever, South America, it really is irrelevant. I wanted something that somebody that was an operator in the way of a machete could take, and it's going to be built to the same indestructible standards that our other breaching tools are built to. And when we developed this, it was this idea of, Rob, we want to make something that is not going to break, or if it sustains any sort of damage, it's still going to be completely usable. And that is in other words, the prevention of catastrophic failure is the main focus in developing anything. Everything's got its limits material wise, everything, but this whole idea of creating something that's going to be able to be pushed to the limit, and in other words, take that issue of catastrophic failure and push it as far out as humanly possible and still be able to maintain good use, good carry, maintainability. We feel like the Fury does that. It's got, with the solid thickness, this thing is a true chopper. Most folks don't know that we've gone head to head in a couple of different chopping competitions with some of the more prolific brands. And man, this thing has performed really, really well. Really, really well.
Well, I can definitely attest to its indestructibility. I took it out to a bushcraft gathering, and we had a bunch of meat and potatoes fed men just running around in the woods trying to break this thing. And about the only thing we managed to do, we managed to bend the tip just a little bit because we were being stupid and jamming it in and prying, but it bent right back and it never broke on us for sure.
It's that idea, and that's another thing I've had, because we build Hawks too. And my source of information when it came to the learning side of developing tactical tomahawks, obviously, is the father of the modern tactical tomahawk, which is Ryan Johnson. And the main focus behind building anything that has to do with breaching or anything that you plan on putting downrange is this idea of catastrophic failure. Mm-hmm. That is to prevent that. And because if you hand a piece of kit off to an infantry guy or anybody like that, they are going to beat the living daylights out of it. Now, the question remains, like you guys found out, a bent blade can be squared away, but a blade that, fractures, breaks at a stress rising position, that's going to be a real problem.
Now, you mentioned tactical tomahawks. We've actually got one here in front of us as well.
Yes, my girl. My sweetie. Yeah, because I designed most of what's here with a handful of other ones, but this is one of my darlings. So this is one that's very near and dear to my heart.
And what's this one called? Sorry, I forgot the name, of course.
Wrath.
Because, of course, I did my homework.
No worries. It's all good, brother. We're all busy guys.
So tell me a little bit about this fine piece.
So the Wrath came out of this pressure to, I made a couple of these as customs under my personal brand. And there was some late nights with Ryan talking about this. And we finally came, he helped me through some of the process and some pitfalls to stay away from. But in the long run, he was right with me. So we went ahead and mass produce it. And right out of the gate, we said, okay, I want this to do this. And the entry was breaching. It was this idea of, I want to chop vehicles, cars. I did not immediately design this thing with this idea that I'm going to be using it for bushcraft. Can you do a lot of it? Yeah, I know quite a few guys who use it for bushcraft. But the main purpose of this thing is to breach. So I can tell you with a great amount of certainty that you can breach right on up to a small sedan or a light pickup truck with this. We actually have a video on YouTube, Wrath versus Car, and it's basically 7 of us chopping into a vehicle with this. And to be honest with you, it wore all 7 of us out. chopping into the vehicles. That's another thing that nobody talks about, is this idea that once you start chopping into steel, folks, it is not like wood. Steel absolutely pushes back with a great amount of ferocity. It is, you chop and you like get 2 or 3 strikes into it, and then you start realizing as this stuff is pushing back.
Right.
So
you got a job ahead of you.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So yeah, the Wrath was about breaching, something that we could offer to door kickers and guys that are still operating in field. So yeah, that was the main thing, was creating this tool to be able to be wielded by guys that are still kicking doors and doing everything in the name of liberty.
When you're using 80 CRV2 on both of these big blades as well, so extreme toughness, very high performance, and if you're going for that indestructibility, that's a pretty darn good choice. Or no, actually, the Fury was S7, wasn't it? I apologize.
They are all 80 CRV now. Initially, they were S7.
Okay.
What we found out was that the additional carbon content in the 80 CRV gave a better edge holding capability in the long run. Yeah, your S7 it's jackhammer steel is what it is, and it does that. We were noticing though that we just got better edge holding capability out of the 80 CRV.
Sure, I could see that. And plenty of blacksmiths across the country have proven that 80 CRV2 is incredibly durable stuff, for sure.
Oh God, it's wonderful. Yeah, it's fantastic. It's great steel.
I know it's a lot of grip on this G10 here as well. Probably something you're going to want to wear gloves while using, I would think.
Yeah, that was another thing is I remember all the years that I spent chopping myself, and there was so many places that I could not go into with gloves because nobody offered a handle that gave me a really good point of contact through a set of leather gloves. I always felt like, especially when you're cutting for, I mean, there were cases as a land surveyor, dude, we were cutting for months on end. I mean, 7 days a week, 12, 14 hours a day. So your hands are that sweaty, or that getting wore out, you want to try to hang on, because in some cases you're doing close proximity cutting where you're leapfrogging every 25, 30 feet with a guy cutting down line, and you just really can't afford to lose that blade. You could have a real serious accident out in the middle of nowhere. So there was a lot of times I didn't wear gloves, and my hands paid the price, the briars and bramble and whatever, because I did not feel like I was getting a nice positive contact. And what we did is that we designed this so that when you grab a hold of it with a set of gloves, like if, whatever, you're an operator, or if you're going to be chopping, cutting something up behind the house, you put a pair of gloves on, you can feel the traction with this thing.
Sure. It's not going anywhere.
No.
For sure. Definitely another real solid piece, and nice strong Kydex sheath has come with both of these guys as well.
Yeah. Very proud of our Kydex, brother. That's something that, as a brand, I think, that's one thing nobody takes into consideration. You look at this concept of designing Kydex and manufacturing Kydex and not understanding the pitfalls that come with it, whether it's atmospherics or repeatability. Then you end up talking to friends in the industry. Like, for instance, a lot of folks will talk to us about the fact that we use 125 thick Kydex. Well, there's a reason for that again, a lot of our contemporaries from not only RMJ but Spartan and other people like that shared with us, is that with some of the guys that are using these in certain particular situations where they're jumping out of things, the moment they make contact or they hit the ground, they were losing. In other words, the moment their feet hit the ground, they were losing some of their kit. And another thing too is guys who operate, it's really difficult to get them to use this right here. So you need to have a nice retention for them in the event that they decide that they're not going to use the retention strap for whatever reason that belongs to them only. That's why our Kydex is built that it's got solid retention even when you don't have the retention strap. That's the purpose behind that.
For sure. Well, it's definitely, again, I know how indestructible the Fury was, and it's got the same rock solid feel here.
Yeah, this thing's it's a bear, and it's just so much fun to just break things with. I can't even begin to tell you.
All right, well, we've got some fixed blades, some smaller fixed blades on the table here. We've got some tactical things and some definite outdoor things, and then a few that kind of ride the line in between that. Where would you like to start?
Let's start from one of the beginning pieces. Let's start with the Drakon, because the Drakon is one of the original series that we came up with. There was 3 original ones. This is one of them. So the the funny thing is that when I hand this blade to people, they give me this look, and the first thing that comes out of their mouth is Batman. And yeah, somewhat, but here's an issue that something that I like the idea of. So everybody loves serrations. Serrations are difficult to sharpen, but they cut like nobody's business. So this particular blade, I made this thing so that it would, in a self-defense situation, if a person had to use something like this, that it would test the attacker's will to fight. And it does. We actually shoot a video with us testing this on a pig, and this thing absolutely devours flesh.
Mhm.
That's the only word that I can use. It absolutely devours it. And people will talk about, the ability to cut through a Carhartt vest or a Carhartt jacket. We actually dressed the pig up in a Carhartt jacket. And this thing, the very first laceration that we cut goes right down the back. And the laceration is like 24 inches long and about 2.5 to 3 inches deep, almost the entire length of it. So
Well, we know how effective any kind of hawkbill is, and you mentioned they're like serrations. They're almost like three little hawkbills together. And every time you draw that back towards you, you're really putting some slicing through something.
Yeah, it is. It is. Anybody who hasn't seen that video, I definitely recommend check that out. Because I've got a few guys now that carry this, a couple of law enforcement guys where they allow it, a couple of guys that I know that are static guys who do, security and all that, they carry these. And just because of this idea, 2 things, it absolutely devours flesh. Secondly, once you get this thing in your hand, it's very difficult to get it take it away from you. And the next thing is its ability to, you can go forward or reverse grip. On the forward grip, you're getting the longest length of cut reaching out in front of you in that fencing grip. So a person who's automatically going to reach for the fencing grip, it is very comfortable for a knife its size, and being so, well, what I would say, simple. I mean, this is just a big hunk of steel is all it is. Being in its naked state, it's a lot of knife there.
Yeah, you're quite thick. What material are you using here? Is this also 80 CRV too?
No, these original ones, the new batches will be 80 CRV, but these original ones that are coated are actually 1095.
Okay.
They're 1095.
Well, and like you said, nice and thick, and they are comfortable because of that. Like, you're not, some skeletonized knives, this is not necessarily skeletonized, obviously, but some, no handle knives that don't have any kind of scales or handle attached can feel a little thin, but that's not the impression I get when I pick this one up. No, it's a lot of knife, dude. I always tease people. I'm like, all right, when it's dull, you can just throw it at them. I mean, it is. My God, it's a lot of steel. When we first made these and I first picked these up, I'm like, wow, that's heavy. But then when we started doing the cut tests, let me tell you, that weight really works to the advantage. Sure,
it really does. It really does. It's a lot of knife.
Well, and then with that four-finger ring too, you still have use of your fingers if you need them. Yeah,
sure do. Sure do. And then if you put it in that reverse grip, you got an augmented strike, and then you got all the control and the movement that you can do with it. So it's a, normally this is the kind of thing that I'm doing at Blade Show, is I'm demoing and I'm talking about getting in and doing things like that. That's the all those years in Filipino martial arts coming out.
Very nice. And again, Kydex sheath with a tech lock on this, I believe.
Yep.
Very nice.
Yep, absolutely.
What else do we have on the table?
Let's go to this. Let's go to the Pathseeker.
Now, this is a knife out of everything here, probably speaks to me more than anything else, given my outdoor proclivities.
Yeah. So I wanted to get into the bushcraft market, but the question was who. At the time, I don't have the skill sets. I mean, do I hunt? Yes. Do I fish? Yes. And clearly tactical design. Yeah, I can do that, but I needed somebody who understood about it. So it just so happens that I'm Marshall Brothers with Akeem Eisler, and he came up to my table one Blade Show and pitched this to me, and I said, I love it. So we went through the designing process, and and he, questions were thrown up about what steel, and I'm like, is there, for specifically for something like this, is there anything else other than 80 CRV? Really? I mean, you want something that you can baton, that you can just beat the crap out of. I mean, literally. And this thing is we've got a test one up at the shop that we use, and God Almighty, this thing will take a lot of abuse.
Well, again, it's that same great steel and nice thick blade stock. I think we're about 1/4 inch on these. Yep. And I definitely see, you mentioned the word bushcraft, but I can definitely see some influence of some of the kind of the classic survival knives of the 80s, kind of updated a little bit in a way.
Yep.
It's definitely got that heritage to it for sure.
Yeah. With the movement, I call it the funny thing is that you may be able to, to reflect on this as well. You and I were probably raised by, or had grandparents or whatever that, they did not, like, if I would have taken a knife out and batoned it in front of my grandfather, the only person getting batoned would have been me. That just wasn't, that wasn't what you did back then. Grabbed an axe and you split with and all that. And I understand where they're coming from, but this lines up in this. I'm going to go ahead and call it a new movement of, developing these single, or I should say, non-single use ponies.
Mm-hmm.
These knives that can do a little bit of everything. And that's kind of what we wanted to do, was create something that fell into that category, because although everybody doesn't see that way, there's a lot of folks who do. They want something they can baton, they can do a lot of different things with. And I this blade does that. It's definitely not a one-trick pony.
Yeah, definitely good all-around camp knife. I see you've got a not a sharpened section here at the back, but you do have this section here where it comes right to the apex in the center of the spine. Is that for like a bone breaker type of feature, or what were your thoughts there?
You can use that for a bone breaker, but also a lot of Hakeem has got a technique that he uses that he explains pretty vividly, where he likes to hold the blade down above the tinder and strike down on top of it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what he uses it for.
Okay.
He has that sharpened, that spot. What we do is each blade that comes out is usually touched up right in that area. And then it's used to just strike off the back of it, so that in the event that you're and again, he's somebody that points out that if you're in a situation, you try not, if you're out in the middle of nowhere, you don't want to get cut. You don't want to put yourself in a situation like that. So he's got this very safety minded procedure in lighting tinder that is pretty interesting. Again, I don't know an awful lot about it, but I find it interesting that a person would think that much through it, that if you're in a survival situation, you don't want to get injured. So here's another technique that you can use to light your tinder.
And that is roughly, it looks, I mean, it's hard to judge because of the angles, but it does look like roughly a 90-degree angle where the two meet. So you should have a good amount there to strike your fire seal for sure. It looks, very nice. Very nice. And of course, you got your extra holes there, so you can do some of that quote-unquote survival knife lashing of the knife to the stick, that sort of thing. Yeah, just another solid piece. But again, like, I could see this being worn on an infantryman's belt too.
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely got that indestructibility feel to it. This thing is. It's and again, the whole mindset and the process is that infantry guys will pretty much, if something's going to get broken, they'll run it to the apex of being broken.
Sure.
But so that's the kind of, but then again, that's the standard that we try to design to. We're designing to this idea that, okay, we don't design to the best case scenario, we're designed to the worst case scenario.
Sure. Very cool. Very cool. All right, what's next, sir?
Let's do you know what? Let's do one of our imports. Did we send you guys an Ahab? Do you guys have an Ahab?
Yes.
Okay, let's pull an Ahab up. This is one of my favorite. This was our second entry into a quote unquote import market. This was the first one, or I'm sorry, the second one that we did. So I made the Ahab out of my custom shop for probably 4 years down in the Chattanooga region. And I've got probably 35 or so of these, 40 of these operational down there that I made specifically for law enforcement, because I taught DT classes at CPD. And I had guys who wanted a knife that they could carry out there. The biggest thing was they couldn't be really big because they had a lot of issues with size when they had to fill out their reports.
Hmm.
The size of the blade made a really big difference on how it appealed to the judge. So
Interesting.
yeah, so and that always seems to, like you got a lot of guys that'll carry karambits and all that, not understanding that how a lot of times how the judge will view it. Not always, but sometimes. There was a couple of judges that were sitting on the bench
Sure.
up there that they were like, "Hey, we want something about this size, nice and small."
Something
So
they can kind of nod and wink at, sort of.
yeah, it's something justifiable.
Yeah.
That's it's not overly large. It's pulling a machete, crocodile Dundee in somebody.
Yeah.
But it's also small enough that it's still functional and it's kind of discreet in nature.
Well, I have to imagine them getting in and out of patrol cars with the amount of gear on their belt too. There's definitely an advantage to that smaller package for sure.
Yeah, it's nice and tight. It comes with a tech lock, but we also do we designed a little package or a little kit that it'll fit right on the back of certain mag pouches where it'll fit right in there and they can hide it nice and tight. Notice I went with an oversized ring because there were some guys that on the Chattanooga SWAT that were nice enough to talk to me and kind of come up. And we specifically, a lot of those guys are, they got gloves on, making it so they can get a nice glove hand in there if they needed to. So we did this as an import because I wanted to make something that was very, 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 it was built real well, but gave law enforcement guys a lot of value, a lot of bang for their buck. And at the price point that we sell these at, I think, nice, solid carbon steel, PVD coated G10 scales, nice, solid screwed hardware. All the edges are nice and broken. We got really nice jimping on the back for nice thumb traction. This
and
is
not so aggressive that it hurts, even in a bare hand. Like that's very comfortable.
Yeah. So it just I wanted, again, from the years of doing some defensive tactics with guys, I wanted to create something that the biggest thing was a bang for the buck, because you can't expect a Leo to drop big money, because if something does happen and he does have to use it, chances are it's going to end up in evidence.
Right.
So, it's really not applicable to, and that was one of the things that stuck in my mind was when I was designing this. I remember having a conversation with a Hamilton County Police Department guy from Tennessee, and he said, I'd made him a knife, and the first thing that came out of his mouth was, "Dude, I hope I don't have to use this." And I'm like, "Okay, why?" He says, "Well, it's probably going to end up in evidence," and it was like a $175, $200 knife. So that's one of the main things that got me thinking about this. I mean, this idea of being able to have something that it works great, very functional, solid construction, no frills, but key points in certain areas, bulleted. And one of those things is just value. Bang for the buck being the main part of it.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely. Like it's a good little size, like you said, not too big, not too small, but you got that nice, strong Tonto profile there. Just a really effective little guy. I could see this even being a decent EDC for folks who are into this kind of style.
Yeah, I mean, I carry one myself right here.
And I didn't even know that. That wasn't even planned.
Yeah, that's me. I mean, this is one of mine.
Yep.
I carry that. I'm a big fan of, and I carry that on strong side. I teach classes on carrying that. I'm kind of like, with shoes, I'll carry one for 3 or 4 months and then I'll switch over to something else, carry that for a while. But yeah, this is definitely one of my favorites. I enjoyed designing and making this blade, even when I was doing it as a custom. It's one of my favorites.
Very nice. Very nice. Well, now here we've got 2 more, and these are the ones that I think kind of ride that line between the outdoor and the tactical a little bit. You want to talk about those?
Yeah. No, why don't you pick one first?
Let's go with the smaller one.
Yeah.
Nitro V steel in this case, which I like to see a lot.
Yep. Chico Diablo. Okay, so I can't talk about this knife.
Okay.
I can't. I cannot talk about this. So without talking about, Blade Show. So most people don't understand how tight the knife industry is. Most people don't understand that the majority of us makers are, not all of us, we don't know everybody, but most of us have circles that we run in that are really tight. And this blade right here is not only a reflection of the blade in unto itself, but the person, Kim Breed. Kim's a good man. Kim is an extraordinary individual on top of many things. To me, that's what makes this knife design so powerful for me.
I've had the
Is
chance to meet Kim once, and yeah, came across very much that way. Great knife maker, good writer for Blade Magazine, as well as, of course, a good human being.
Yeah. Kim is a favorite among my kids. All my kids love Kim. They love talking to Kim. He's been kind of inspirational in getting my daughter to start writing.
Mm-hmm.
So for me to talk about this knife, it's hard to talk about this knife without talking about Kim. So great knife by an even greater human being. His years in special operations has reflected in this design, but it literally, like you said, it balances on that edge of tactical versus outdoor. It literally rides that edge. It rides the edge big time.
I mean, yeah, there's so many things you could do with this particular shape.
Yeah. It I mean, I have one of these. So when we were doing the prototypes, I sent him a piece of Nitro V where he beveled. So there's 2 prototypes that he beveled partially, and I keep one of them. One of them's mine.
I'd keep both of them if I were you.
Yeah, I went ahead and made a sheath, and that particular Chico Diablo is one of my strong sides when I don't want to run one of my other 2.
Mm-hmm.
Just because dude, I can that particular setup that I've got, I'm in the hundredths of a second in drawing time with it. It just fits so perfectly. I've got a thing that I teach called At the Drawing Board, and I literally got a drawing session where I use that blade, and I'm in the hundredths of a second in drawing time with that blade. It's just phenomenal, and it's so good for everything. We've sharpened these up. That Nitro V takes an edge. I mean, just unbelievable. I've got stories of guys skinning multiple animals, 3, 4, 5 animals without having to dress the blade.
Oh, sure.
And
this is a great shape for that, too. You got a great sweep to the edge, nice slicer, nice skinner, great steel with a great stonewashed finish. Hands down my favorite in your lineup right here.
Thank you. Yeah, we're very proud of this one. Very proud. I'm very proud of it, because of the connection that I've got with the maker. It's a great knife.
And I've always said, the first time I ever went to a blade show, I was like, oh, look at all the cool, shiny things. By the second time I had gone to blade show, it's all about the people.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Every time.
Agreement. Yep. That's one of the main lamentings that I have about blade show. Yeah, the show is great, but the people are even greater. We have an annual dinner that we do at Scalini's, which is one of the restaurants there, and it's an Italian restaurant. We started out with like 6 or 8 of us doing this dinner, and as of last year, we capped out at almost 60 people.
Wow.
And Kim, Kim, Donnie Harper from Harp Leather, Darren Soroy, another one of our designers. Just the list goes on and on. Hakeem Eisler. I mean, everybody who's attached with or through us, Filipino Combat. I mean, the names go on and on and on. Everybody shows up to that. Why? It's just, we're one big family, dude.
Yeah,
it's just like
it's a brotherhood.
Tribe. Yes, you hit it. You hit the nail on the head. Absolutely.
The brotherhood of the blade, for sure.
Yep. A lot of times we call it the steel dust, guild.
Right.
Just everybody. Yeah, because I mean, a lot of us are some kind of a maker in some way, shape, or form. You know what I'm saying? And I love that. That's another thing that I love about the knife industry. If you come up to me and you are about it, you're either about the designing, the materials, you're an operator, you're a martial artist, you're whatever. That connection to the blade ties everybody together. You'll usually you'll get somebody who's maybe they're not into it in that way. They're not about the blade. They don't have that Japanese philosophy side of it where the soul is in the blade. And those people that are just in it for the money, dude, they stick out like a sore thumb, bro.
You get found out pretty quickly.
You do. You find yourself uncomfortable when you listen to the way a lot of these people talk. It's whether you're the leather guy who's tied into the making the leather for the blades, or you're just the guy who's, you got a fascination for the materials, or you're the guy who just makes the belts. You've got an affinity for generating a great aggregate, to be able to do to do what we do.
Mm-hmm.
There's got to be some sense of passion about it. If you're just looking at this as a widget, you may be in the wrong industry.
For sure. For sure. Dude, like, I feel like you and I could talk for hours about this, but we probably don't have hours on YouTube, unfortunately.
Yeah.
One of these days when we sit down in person, we'll do that, though.
I'd love to, because I love. For me, it's spiritual, man. It's very spiritual.
Absolutely. Man, it wrapped up so nicely. I almost feel sorry that we got to go back and talk about the next knife.
Okay.
That would have been a great place to end this video, but we're going to keep going.
I had forgotten that was one of them.
So the Lite-Fighter here.
I can talk about that easily from right here.
Yeah, I mean, this is another, again, the kind of a family to that Kim Breed model.
Yeah, so it's making the hair on my arm stand up because the people. So Darren Soroy, golly, what don't you say about this guy? For Darren, so the road to relevance is paved with humility. And that guy is one of the most humble dudes that I know, considering as a ranger and as other things that he did for our country. Just another phenomenal human being, another favorite of my family. Everybody in my house loves Darren. Bringing him on board as a designer was a no-brainer. He brought so many things, like for the development of the Hawk, the sheathing systems. There's still things that I'm working on now, tips that he's given me. The Lite-Fighter is the culmination of what he expresses to me as years of operation and coming out with that blade that fits that combat utility bracket to a T.
Mm-hmm.
And the Lite-Fighter does that. The Lite-Fighter has all the best qualities of a solid combat utility.
Again, similar materials, Nitro V steel, stone-washed finish, versatile blade. I like it a lot as well. There's a reason well, actually, you picked the order. I was going to say there's a reason I kept these for last, but I would have done that if I were picking the order, because, like I said, these are the ones that I think speak to me the most.
Yeah, so the Lite-Fighter, a lot of people, if you're passionate about blades, the Lite-Fighter, for me, it's hard to not talk about the Lite-Fighter without getting involved in talking about military history.
Mm-hmm.
So, in understanding combat utility blades, there's two blades that stand out. You have the K-bar and the Sykes-Fairburn.
Sure.
Those two, right off the bat, always seem to come right to the top, because
it's
they're
like the number one and number two most influential combat knives of the last century, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I got to a conversation with somebody, and I'm like, in my very humble opinion, I put the Lite-Fighter, designed by TCT, Darren Soroy. I put it in that category because I've had the blessing and the honor of handling original Sykes and original K-bars. And I have to say that the Lite-Fighter is in a class its own, because when you look at the concept of teaching, again, I've been blessed to work with guys in field with teaching hand-to-hand and knife work and these things. The idea of having that blade that's dynamic enough that it can go from being judge, jury, and executioner to survival,
mm-hmm.
and do it well, that bracket is a very large chasm, because you have so many blades like this one that work really well in the survival side and all those different things that, okay, if you needed to, yeah, it's great, but it's got some things that you need to overcome in that mindset. Where on the other side, you've got blades like the Fairburn Sykes and you got the K-bar that were phenomenal in the way of using for hand-to-hand or CQB, that may not transfer as well over to the side of, okay, well, I've got to, make a fire stick. I've got to do this. I've got to do that. But the Lite-Fighter, hands down, fills in that. I mean, it takes what was a canyon and makes it like this, because you can go from one side to another very, very easily.
For sure. Another very, very good design there. All right, I've got one more knife on the table here, and this one's more for the guys who can't carry a fixed blade. Like, if they like what you're talking about, but the fixed blade just doesn't fit their life, you sent us a folder to show off as well.
Yep. And then actually this one here is, this is mine. This is my actual, what I carry on my weak side. So again, people, this is really where this is about. This is about friends and acquaintances and folks that you meet in the industry. So this blade was actually designed by Mike Vellenkamp of V Knives. This was his Poseidon.
Mm-hmm.
The very first time I saw the Poseidon on Mike's table, I fell in love with it. So I love the design. I love the rock and the blade. I love the modified clip. I love the way it feels in the hand. It's very comfortable, very ergonomic. It doesn't fight with any part of your grip anatomy at all.
And it's got a really good slicing profile to go along with that.
Yes, I love that rock in the belly. I love it. It just works. Whether you're not, I mean, you laugh about this, but there are times I've caught myself doing this with the blade. So I don't know. It's just, it fills in so many gaps. Mike did such a phenomenal job with this particular design. I loved it. And I said, I would love to package this in a way that blue collar guys could get a knife D2 built like this, because a lot of guys, they'll even ask me, they're like, oh man, is that bearings? I'm like, nope. And they're like, well, what is it? I said, it's phosphorus washers.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, well, why is it so smooth? I said, it's because of the way it's built.
Yeah, if it's tuned right, they work wonderfully.
Yes, it is built. I mean, I can't even begin to tell you. This particular blade was built by Cutco in Taiwan. Those of us who are in the industry, we know the man behind the name. And I wanted to generate an import that carried solid qualities of everybody else. Let's just be honest about it. There's so many other guys that are doing it as well. But I looked at this blade and I said, wow, this blade in D2 for this price, it should be a winner. I mean, I mean, you're getting a lot of bang for the buck with this particular design.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And really it all comes down, the build is important, but it all, of course, and it all comes down to the design. And if you're starting with one of his designs, you're onto something. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Mike is a phenomenal designer. Our relationship has grown over the years. A lot of meeting up at different shows and talking business and sitting down. There's a couple of just some great evenings at places like USN or whatever, where we've sat down and had great conversations about building and design. And he himself is a walking encyclopedia. I mean, there's probably very few people who have traveled amongst the production folder industry the way Mike has. Mike has been right there at the point of it. And that's why all of his designing and everything he's doing now is a blast. And that's why it was a pleasure to work with him on helping us getting a reliable value-based folder that could sit in the market, especially with it being D2, and do really well.
Yeah. Very nice. Very nice. Well, thanks for showing us these blades. I do have one more question for you to kind of wrap things up. And you've kind of touched on some of these things a little bit as we've gone through, but to sum things up, this is for the folks out there, if they've not tried a DoubleStar product before, why should they be looking at your products right now?
Because if you are American-made minded, and you want to support a company that has a legacy, if you want to support people that are pushing to do better, to be more patriotic, to help you support this whole concept of American made and American ingenuity and grassroots, and something that you can sit around and tell a story about years from now, because these are all blades, every one of them. And I'd even throw the imports in as well, that you'll be able to sit around a campfire or sit around the dinner table or sit on the front porch and talk about that knife that you bought, fill in date here, X amount of years ago. You're that operator that bought one of our Hawks X amount of years ago, and it's still there for you to pass on to somebody. We're into developing that legacy and that American-made legacy. And we're all about grassroots. We're all about family. We're all about patriotism. We're all about doing it right right here in the U.S. and giving something that's value based, something for the blue collar American that they can pass on and be able to use and get the job done.
Very nice. All right, folks, thanks for sticking around with us. Make sure to let us know in the comments what you thought of these knives. And if you want to check out the latest and greatest from DoubleStar, we'll leave links in the description that take you over to KnifeCenter.com. Rob, thanks so much for taking part of our Blade Show week, man. I really appreciate it.
We appreciate you guys from Knife Center. It's a great partnership that we have with you guys. I truly enjoy it.
Thanks, everyone. And make sure to check out all the rest of our great Blade Show week coverage. All right, thanks, everyone.
Take care. God bless.